Hey, what's happening everyone? Pragmatic Addict here. So Terrifier is back, and early reviews were actually saying that this series is still continuing to up itself. This new installment was in fact getting the best reviews so far of the series, welcoming back the same warnings that the second one had gotten. And I'd actually say that maybe I was hearing even more of those reports of fainting, vomiting, leaving during showings than the second film. But I was super excited for this film for a few significant reasons. First off, the finale to that second film. I'm not going to go into specifics for people that still haven't seen that second film, but a lot of holes, a lot of questions, a lot of things up in the air. Also, this is a fucking Christmas movie. I guess Art the Clown isn't just a Halloween entity. Apparently he's here year fucking round. I was also hearing that this film does have that iconic that kill that the first and second film had. And Terrifier 3 is finally out, so guys, let's stop teasing. Let's finally talk about Terrifier 3. So I just gotta say, the hype is a big factor obviously in this film. Again, with a series like Terrifier and the things that we heard from Terrifier 2 that made that such a big deal, and now even more so with this one, I did find myself always looking forward to something in this film. Whether that be the kills or some questions being potentially answered from that second film, as well as where this film would eventually leave off, because Terrifier 4 has been confirmed already. This film's opening sequence, which was the actual scene that was making a lot of people faint and vomit, walk out. I will say, just doing my best to not spoil much, the people that were in this scene, I was concerned. This being a Terrifier film and the next Terrifier film, with the reports saying that they were continuing to up shit even more, as well as the sound design this time around. Holy shit, even before you see any kill happen, even when the kills are happening, if you just close your eyes, if you're watching this film and an intense kill is happening, you're like, you know what, I'm gonna close my eyes, don't want to know. Your head is gonna go to some very dark places. I'd actually probably go as far as to say that the most discomforting or alarming thing to me in my viewing was the sound design. I mean, it's very specific, it's piercing, it's loud, but going back to this opener, it is violent, there are a lot of kills, and again, with the type of people that are involved in it, it is definitely a promising setup for this next Terrifier film, but I am gonna say, I don't think it's fully gonna be that scene, or even just this film in general, that people are gonna fully expect. I'm just gonna say personally, I don't think this was as graphic as the second film. One thing I will say though is that for the hype that this film had as the next film following those two films, supposedly upping it even more, with the questions that the second one left us off with, I felt that the big attraction of focus here was actually more on the story itself. And though I say that it had more of a focus on story, I don't know if I'd say it fully feels worth the wait, because there was just so much. I don't know if I'd say that there was big shoes to fill from the second film, but goddamn, if they wanted to make sure that a film needed a second part, well, they fucking did it. Hell, we might even get 2 more sequels after this. The Terrifier 2 had a lot of story. It also had a massive runtime that just kind of felt all over the place. It was very polarizing. And this film, it did seem to recognize that to an extent. From the get-go, for the most part, it does focus right where the second one left off. And aside from, in my opinion, just more tame Terrifier kills here and there, we follow Sienna's character in a more actual center story fashion, in a much more character study driven sort of way than just seeing that as an element in an otherwise very shocking grindhouse slasher. It's actually the other way around. Though I will say, regardless of how you feel about that, it does make for a more cohesive film than the second one, where it seemed like a big thing for that was just kind of oh, we want to up the horror factor. We want to make the most shocking slasher that we possibly can. While also, yes, we want to make this a massive franchise all of a sudden. We're going to have all kinds of setup for storylines that would only be able to come together in numbers of sequels, where it seemed like there was definitely potential in both of those aspects, but they just didn't know where to draw that line or how to balance both of those elements. Though the story isn't perfect, it's a bit slow at times, it still has a beefy runtime, things kind of drag, it could 100% be narrowed down to like 100 minutes, and same thing goes for art actually. There are times where we'll be watching him and it is slow, things feel a bit pointless. There will be times where we're watching Sienna hang out with her niece and they'll be like eating, they'll be doing their makeup. We'll have waited like sometimes 15 minutes it feels like for Art to come back on screen, and then he'll finally come back on screen and he'll kill a rat and then it'll go back to Sienna. So things are still fucking unnecessary for sure, but things just feel like, it just feels like there's not as much to follow this time around. We're just watching a tamer, slower Terrifier sequel, waiting for potentially that kill, and hoping for some of those questions from the second film to actually be answered. Though, finally talking about the kills in this movie, I had a couple of very big issues with the kills this time around. So, the first thing that was a big issue for me is that, I'm not gonna say all of the kills, but definitely most of them, we either see them in some way, shape, or form in the film's marketing. Like, they're either in a trailer or they're teased on a poster. It really did feel like whenever a new character was brought on screen, you're just like, oh yeah, they die. I saw them in that one scene in the trailer. Another big issue for me, how I was saying that like this film is definitely not as graphic in my opinion as the second one, and that things just feel tamer, is that I noticed that not just characters in general, but even like very important characters, a lot of kills were actually just done off screen or just implied. And going back to the story, another thing I want to say is Jonathan and Sienna's relationship this time around. This is directed at the film being a follow-up to that second film's conclusion, where as far as like art side of the story in this movie, it feels more like a follow-up to that film when it's focusing on his side. I mean, besides the fact that this is a Christmas film and it takes place 5 years later, which I'm just gonna say, this has no reason to be a Christmas film. It just doesn't. That is definitely solely just to bring something new and fresh into this franchise. But just Jonathan and Sienna's relationship, it just wasn't that duo or that team up that I wanted following that previous film. I will also say now, when the time comes where Sienna and Art the Clown do finally meet again, I found it to be a bit anticlimactic, a bit weak. Not gonna say when that finally happens or what like all goes into it, but I just found it to be very abrupt, a bit odd as far as the scene itself just coming onto screen. I also found again that very important things, specifically kills, that should have definitely been front and center, or like at least made bigger deal than they actually were again just implied or just shown off screen. It almost feels like they cut a bit back with the kill factor and toned down the tangled story aspect a bit, but toned down the story element just a bit too much, where things definitely feel rushed, things are disappointing, where it should have actually been the filler that was cut. And finally, as far as this film's conclusion, I feel like we're starting to get somewhere. There are still questions lingering from that second film. Some things are made more understandable from that second film in this film, but this film does end with even more questions. And a Terrifier 4, again, it's already been confirmed, but this definitely does feel like things are in motion, getting closer to a potential wrap-up. And overall, guys, I'm going to give Terrifier 3 a positive review. But yes, guys, that is going to do it for my review of Terrifier 3. Let me know what you guys thought about this film in the comments down below. Also, let me know how you guys feel about this one compared to the second one. Which one is your favorite of the series? What are you hoping gets explored in that next film? But yes, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one very soon. Take care.